thank you all for having me out on stage again, and thanks to Jack, Jason, Gloria, and Michael for joining us today. As Piers mentioned, these folks up on stage with me are all involved in mobile app development. And I think what's interesting is as we sort of talk about their experiences today and how brands fit into this, you know, there's, at least from my perspective, there's an expectation from consumers, particularly where apps are concerned, that this is going to be some sort of a free experience. But from a business side, there's that monetization thing that people always talk about, especially with startups. So, you know, one of the things we're going to focus on today is how do you bring brands into the mix without totally alienating your consumers. So if we start at the end here with Jack, I'm just going to have everyone introduce themselves and explain a little bit about what they do, and then we'll get into the conversation. So Jack, why don't you take it away?
All right. So I'm Jack. I am responsible for all of the product marketing efforts on advertising and publisher solutions at StumbleUpon. I am the one photo that doesn't fit on that screen there. In my responsibilities, I look after our platform called Paid Discovery, which is a way to directly have brands engage their branded content in with StumbleUpon's 15 million users.
I'm Jason Oberfest. I work at Moco. We are a mobile game company. We're about 200 people now, based in San Francisco. Quick facts about our company, I guess. I think we've done about 160 million downloads of our games, almost entirely on the iOS platform, though we're really focused on Android as well right now. I think we've had about 21 games in the top 10 in the Apple App Store, and that's what we do. We make games, we publish games for other third parties, and we also operate a social network that ties all the games together for users.
Hey, I'm Gloria Lynn. I lead product at Flipboard. Flipboard is a social magazine. Right now it's only on the iPad, although we're quickly expanding to other platforms. And what it does, it takes your Facebook and your Twitter feed, RSS feeds, websites, blogs that you care about, as well as major publishers like The New Yorker and Vanity Fair, and we turn that into a beautiful social magazine experience. And so we take all that content and make it look much more beautiful. We automatically lay it out in a really wonderful paginated experience. And what we do is we actually insert a very familiar type of advertising in between the pages, and that's magazine, print-like advertising. We take actually a lot of the same creative that big brands like Toyota are using in actual real print campaigns, and we put that in our app on the iPad, and we think it's an interesting way to approach content and ads and how to fuse that into a really great user experience.
All right, Michael Callahan from One, and what we do is we let you, One's a mobile application, it lets you know when there's people around you that share your interests. So basically, you guys are at a conference here, and you're going to be doing your best to meet with the people that are most relevant to you. But I'm sure you guys have all been there and seen, like, hey, who is the right person for me to talk to, right? You guys have all been in a restaurant and not had a place to sit, or if you went to a movie by yourself, or it was the first day of college for you and you didn't have any friends. You've all been in this, what we call friend expansion mode. And what that is basically the ability to create kind of a new opportunity for people to connect. So like right now, like you probably hear coming onto my phone, there's some other guy here, his name's Corey, and he also likes 30 Rock, right? He's over there, right? So that's what we do. I mean, basically we, hopefully you get kind of where brands come into that picture, that this content is their content. But delivering it to consumers at the right place at the right time is a really tricky thing, and we're trying to make a whole new avenue for that.
I think maybe we can start off and just think about the mobile platform in general now. Obviously, as we shift from the sort of desktop experience into the mobile environment, there's some new expectations, behaviors around how people are using their phones. And I wonder if you guys can talk about how you're sort of seeing that shift with your own audience, and I'm just going to direct it at the group, and then we can go from there.
I can start it off on that one. So StumbleUpon has four different entry points for our users. We have desktop browsers, iPad, iPhone, and Android, all three of which have been released over the course of the last year. And what we've seen that's pretty interesting from the adoption standpoint is when you look at an actual mobile device, you see something that is, I don't know if expected or not expected, but during commute hours, you see a lot of activity of our users just stumbling from URL to URL to find interesting content, which mirrors pretty closely to what our desktop usage is. On tablets, on the other hand, so with our iPad, we actually see substantial use during prime time, so a time where desktop usage isn't necessarily as strong. So it's been pretty interesting to see this new device kind of come in and take a different part of our time, which has been traditionally saved for your standard primetime slots.
I can add to that as well. I think like Gloria and Michael, I mean, we were founded as a mobile company principally, so we didn't evolve out of the web space. What we saw in a macro sense that was so interesting to us in this area was really three principal things happening all at the same time. One is data plans were getting much more open, enabling users to just spend a lot more time on their devices and consume a lot more information on their devices. We saw that mobile devices, the distribution models were radically changing. So if you look at a model like Android, which is so appealing to carriers and manufacturers both, we recognize clearly how ubiquitous these devices would be. I think our last thing I read was that there'd be 1 billion smartphones by 2013. So we were really interested in that as well. And then also, of course, just the unique capability of smartphones and how different they are, the fact that they're more powerful than most computers we used only a few years ago and are capable of creating incredible experiences like really high frame rate games that we make, or the kind of experience that Gloria is making with Flipboard. The capability of these devices as well was the third piece. So all three of those things coming together created this, we thought, just an unprecedented opportunity to build a company that's mobile first and everything else second. And that's what we've done.
Yeah, and at Flipboard, we actually waited to launch our company essentially right after the first iPad came out. There is certainly a lot of debate about whether we should launch first on web or on the iPhone or different more general mobile experiences. And when we thought about what we were really trying to do as a magazine, the iPad just made perfect sense as the first launch platform. And the tablet has really been a game-changing device. There's been a couple things, the tablet and HTML5, which is actually what a lot of our app is built on. iOS is wonderful to develop on, but of course there's a lot of different platforms, and Jason and I were just talking about how important it is to make more and more use of HTML5, JavaScript, and these web technologies that are quickly catching up or that are actually leading the way in a lot of cases of product development and enable us to be in a lot of different platforms. We also see a lot of primetime usage on Flipboard and the iPad. Our most popular hours are actually between 8 and 11 p.m. And a lot of people tell us they sit on their couch and they watch TV, and as they're watching TV during the commercial breaks, they're flipping through their Flipboard. And it's really fun, and sometimes they get really into it and they stop, they forget about the TV show that they're watching. And the next most popular time after that is actually during breakfast when they're drinking their coffee and they've got their Flipboard in the other hand and they're catching up on what happened yesterday or reading about the latest news that came out this morning.
So as Jason said, we basically, as well as with Gloria, founded ourselves kind of on a mobile principle. Now, the stuff that I showed, just being able to connect and localize a person to a specific spot and then start engaging in content, that came directly out of some user behavior and user experience things that I did personally, where I just go to a mall and just watch people. And while I was doing this particular study, I was also at the same time running a more traditional kind of survey. And the survey goes a little like this, and I'll ask you guys to participate. Okay, so first, just think in your head, who is your favorite band or artist? All right, your favorite musician. All right, everyone got them? Okay, now raise your hand if you've been to that band or artist's website. Okay, look around if you missed it. I don't know if I had to take an assessment. It'd probably be, what, every 1 out of 20 people, it seemed like? 1 out of 20 people, I think that might be fair. When I did this study, I asked, that what came out of it was basically 9 out of every 10 people, when asked, have you been to your favorite artist's website? They said no. Now think about that. Like, you already told me that this is the thing that you love, yet there's all this content over here and you've never gone to it. What the hell's the problem, right? Now, meanwhile, while that was going on, what I was doing, I was watching people in malls, and this was years and years ago, before smartphones were really taking off. I was one of the early adopters of smartphones, but I noticed there's a number of people who are kind of older or old like myself, right? So you remember before you actually had a smartphone, did you ever find yourself waiting in line or sitting by yourself and you pull out your device and you start reading text messages that you had already read? You start flipping through, looking at all this stuff, right? That you just kind of want to ward off this feeling that you're by yourself because no one's your friend, right? You want to look important, right? Just take out your device, right? It's the cure to social anxiety, right? So put those two pieces together. Massive amount of content on the web, right, that people don't go to, and this void of content in the mobile space where people are dying for anything of interest, right? And so I put those two pieces together and I said, if you put the content at the right place at the right time, of course they're going to interact with it, right? And so that's part of what we're doing with One.
Well, it's, just to stay there for a minute, I think it's interesting that there appears to be this shift within the sort of social networking space right now where you started with an experience that happened online. It's moving into the mobile space, and now with apps like One, we're seeing that move offline in some way. When we talk about these experiences that are being created, I want to turn the attention to how we're thinking about bringing brands into the equation. So, maybe Michael, you can start off and just talk a little bit about how you guys are playing around with that mix right now, and what are some of the challenges that you're facing.
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, one of the things to think about when we started putting this together was we didn't want to think of brands as a secondary experience. We wanted to think of brands as the primary experience. One of my early advisors, his name's Max Levchin, he founded Slide and PayPal. And he articulated very well this concept of a brand ambassador, right? Like, you guys all have t-shirts, and they're t-shirts and they have like a band's name across it or something that you care about, right? And why are you doing that? Did someone have to pay you to put their logo across your shirt? Of course not, right? It's something that you absolutely love. And so we saw this basically as this symbiotic relationship between the digital space, which always fights to figure out how do we incorporate ads and brands, right? And the real world, which when you know what people want and what they like, they embrace it, right? So for us, this was totally a primary concern. And how we go about addressing it is basically kind of as you saw. When you walk into this room, in addition to 30 Rock, Arrested Development is my favorite TV show, okay? And there's a number of you in the audience who that's also your favorite TV show, okay? So the show's been canceled for like 5 years, okay? So when two Arrested Development people get next to each other, there's a giant spark, okay? They like an instant bond, okay? And so what we do is, even if the application was in your pocket, what it'll do is it'll start playing a 15-second sound clip, which will be the theme song from the show, right? You hear that coming out of your pocket, and also whoever this other person is, right? So without even looking at the application, you already know where that person is. You pull it out, and there, right there, big, bold, beautiful, the majority of the screen is the brand, right? And you're pumped. You want to get engaged with the concept, and the person's right over there, right? So, for the sake of word of mouth, and it just ties together all of those concepts, the same reason why someone doesn't have to pay you, to wear a t-shirt of your favorite thing. We think we can extend that analogy for the sake of brands into mobile.
So I think the word experience is the wrong word to focus on for brands. I think what brands actually need to focus on is the word expectation and the way that expectation happens from the end user perspective, your target audience. And what I mean by that is sort of what brands are about. Yeah, brands are about sales, brands are about empowering their fans to be together, but ultimately what brands are about are, frankly, feelings, right? Brands are about the feeling that you get when you drink a Coke. It's not about that you drank a brown fizzy drink on a hot summer day. And so what we now have the power to do is align ourselves with customer expectations a lot better than we could have in the past. And I think mobile gives a very interesting way to do that. And the example I will give is the example of Weber grills. Who here has grilled over the last few months? Right? How many of you have grilled a steak? How many grilled the perfect steak? I don't believe it. But what Weber did was they realized, as part of evangelizing their brand, you're not necessarily always going to be at your home grill. Maybe you're grilling at a beach, grilling at a park, whatever it is. But one thing that you do always have on you is your mobile phone. And so what Weber did was they built an iPhone app that was Weber's on the Grill. And what you had on that app was a steak timer. And that is absolutely brilliant because you had the expectation that a user had, I'm going to cook a steak, and I want to cook a perfect steak because I want to show everybody how great I am at cooking this. You set it up when you put your steak on, say how many ounces it is, and then it'll give you a buzzer whenever it's time to flip the steak over. You flip the steak over, make the perfect steak. And that's where the experience came in. You aligned yourself with the expectation of I want a great steak, and you gave the experience of how to create a great steak. And now you've created a real bond with Weber and that consumer. And that's something that we couldn't do before. And there's various technology platforms and distribution methods that we have to get that done. And that's why I think brands are starting to create that content. But ultimately, that's what we need to do with brands, is focus on where can we make people happy.
Yeah, so we've got some social, a little bit of the utility. I think what's interesting about Flipboard is it's not only discovery relevancy, but there's also that element of personalization. And how do you build that experience, build on that experience, and then bring brands into that equation in some way?
Yeah. Well, first, you're making me hungry for a good steak.
Yeah, sorry, that's lunchtime.
So we worked with a ton of publishers at Flipboard, everyone from the New York Times to Condé Nast and Hearst and all the major publications. We're talking to them. And it's really interesting. They all kind of realize that they are facing some challenges in this industry, that they're creating a lot of really high quality, very well written, edited journalistic content that is well edited and put out and curated as these discrete issues of magazines or newspapers, and that they're realizing that their business model is faltering, that there are some inherent flaws in it that aren't compatible with the way that people are consuming content, which is more and more online. You go to nytimes.com instead of ordering a print version of the New York Times, and they're struggling to figure out, how do I capture those dollars? You'll see the Ralph Lauren ads that are banner ads on top of the NY Times homepage, and but those ads are, frankly, they're good for the brands, but they're still low value compared to the other things that they do. Whether you're a brand that buys TV ads or print magazine ads, those are the kind of ads that are brand advertising. That type of advertising is the kind of advertising that generates intent. It makes you want to go out and buy, acid jeans this season. It's because you're seeing a new type of big, beautiful ad that you're more used to seeing, rather than a small text ad on the side of a Google search bar. And so what we try to do at Flipboard, can people still hear me?
You're back.
I think okay. And so what we're trying to do is we're not trying to take away any part of this experience. The publisher advertisers have very particular relationships that we're not trying to disrupt. What we're trying to do is try to enable them to understand how that model fits in a world that's increasingly mobile, that's increasingly online, that's increasingly on the tablets, and less on the desktop and laptop. And so what we do is we actually just take that content and we employ some design and technical things that make their content look much better. We actually take their, a straight New York Times website, the kind of website you all know and maybe hate, where there's like there's a banner ad on top, and there's like a sidebar, and there's a bunch of content, and then there's a bunch of other crap on the page. And we take that and we let the content shine through. So we take that, we just grab the headline, the image, the article, we put that and paginate it into literally a page on a tablet that you can flip through that looks just like a magazine. It looks, if you pick up an issue of Wired magazine and Wired on Flipboard, it looks very similar. It's laid out in a really similar way. We employ these timeless designs, the timeless principles of design from print that have worked for hundreds of years, and we're applying them to the iPad. And while we're doing that, we're inserting full-page, beautiful brand advertising into the middle of that content, and people really like it. The response so far to ads on Flipboard has been phenomenally and overwhelmingly positive. People don't think that ads are an intrusive experience on Flipboard because it's usually relevant to the content that you're looking at. And it's geared toward your taste. If you read Wired, you don't have to get a women's fashion ad in there. You'll get that if you read Vanity Fair, for instance. If you don't like the brand, you can just flip right past it. It's very unobtrusive. And so I think all of that ties together and allows us to present a really great user experience while furthering the brand's objectives.
Great. Jason, yes, I haven't forgotten about you. I'm curious, obviously within the social gaming space, I think you guys are approaching brands in an interesting way, and I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how you've rethought how you bring that sort of branded experience in.
Yeah, well, we had a really interesting foray into advertising in general. We were very fortunate early in the history of the company to have charted in the App Store, the iPhone App Store, a top 10 free app and a top 10 paid app. And the original monetization model, generally speaking, for the App Store was paid download, right? And what we realized when we had charted both of those apps was, not surprisingly, right? Like we would see 10x or more the audience on a free app than a paid app. And what we realized was, if we ran an app free and we had this exponentially larger audience, it started unlocking all these meaningful ad revenue streams as well. So while a fraction of our users pay in terms of paying for in-app purchases of virtual items in our games, we can monetize virtually everyone by way of ads. And I think the key for us has been to productize that in a way that maps to every advertiser's interest and level of sophistication. So in general, all advertisers want to be close to consumers in mobile apps now. I just read a study the other day. I think it said that 23% of all consumers' time on smartphones after talking on the phone itself is actually playing social games. So you have this whole category of brand marketers looking to reach consumers there, direct response advertisers as well. And so for us, the way we thought about productizing it was, on the brand side, the easiest and simplest thing to do is to just do integrations of standard ad units, so we can map to campaigns that advertisers are doing elsewhere, and we do a lot of that. But increasingly, what we saw was much more of an interest in very sophisticated product placement in the games, and there are a lot of really interesting opportunities there. So everything from, we have a city sim game called We City, and Century 21 approached us and was really interested in sort of having branded properties that could be built. And so we did that. So they had really interesting placement in a real sort of way in the fiction of the game. But it also allowed users to download their app if they happened to be looking for real estate at the time. And for us, it's been all about finding ways to kind of work with advertisers who are willing to do more sophisticated things, but also are just interested in getting their general ads into our games.
Great. And just one note, I didn't think people actually use their phones to talk anymore. But because we're running a little low on time here, I'll just sort of open it up and we'll close on this all in one breath, I guess. But as we look ahead and people, continue to just obviously use more of these mobile platforms and they become the default, what do you guys see as the big sort of opportunity for brands, or the big key in meeting these new expectations from consumers? And maybe, Jack, you can start and we can move down from there.
Sure. I think what we're going to see a lot more of is, for the last 5 or 6 years of anything digital marketing, we were focused on intent. When are people sort of at the bottom of the purchase funnel? When do they know what they want? And then how can we align with it? And now what we're moving toward is the fun stuff, the stuff that makes up 2/3 of all ad budgets, which is brand dollars. And we're doing that because we have the ability to tell a story that personifies a brand. And the example I'll leave with is how many people here have heard of the Louis Vuitton travel brand? So we got a few hands. So Louis Vuitton is primarily a clothing brand, but they're building a brand around their ability to travel. So with their luggage, all those sorts of things. And what they've traditionally done is they've published a yearly, here are all the luxurious places to see, that you can align yourself with things that Louis Vuitton aligns themselves with. But now what they've transformed that into is an app called, I believe it's called Amble. Don't quote me on that, but Louis Vuitton app should do in your Google search. And what Amble does is, for a select number of cities, so Paris, New York, the kinds of places where Louis Vuitton associates their brand with, they'll give you a guided tour. Like, you can get Sofia Coppola's tour of Paris. She did the Marie Antoinette video. And you're building this amazing connection with your brand and people while they have the ability to use the technology. And we're getting more and more user experiences, and I'll put in a shameless plug for StumbleUpon. We're capturing people for about 7 hours a month while they're looking to discover new content. And we're actually finding advertisers submit their apps directly into our Stumble stream. So be it their iTunes page or a page that they've made, and people that associate with those brands then download those apps, and you finally have that distribution to be able to make that connection with your brand, to then ultimately get at what Jason mentioned. What brands want to allocate their dollars to is driving up purchase intent, first and foremost. And you look at the gaps that we see between what brands have been able to get online, which is raised awareness. That's great that you know about my brand, but what did it do to your end intent to then get you into the ultimate intent and conversions where we've nailed online? So that's where I see the future going: more distribution, better storytelling. It's an exciting time to be in digital marketing.
Jason?
So I think one of the things that's most interesting to us is extending that kind of connection that you described across devices and platforms. So for us, our company started purely iPhone. It was the only game in town at the time. We moved to tablets, and now one of the things we're really interested in is televisions as well. We think that's going to be a really interesting environment for the kinds of interactive applications that we make, and connecting those experiences seamlessly. We're already starting to do that on the first two. We're really excited about the third. Is, for me, one of the most interesting things looking forward.
For me, from what I see at Flipboard, I think a lot of it is the fusing of ads and content. So traditionally, when I first started using the internet, the kinds of ads that I remember from that are like punch the monkey type ads. And that's clearly not the kind of ad that is valuable and builds a brand up over time. They want to have a relationship with the customer. If you're Louis Vuitton, if you're Burberry, you want to capture that customer and keep them for a very long time. As they go through different stages of their life, you sell them different types of things. What we're seeing is that a lot of times advertising is content, depending on the kind of experience that you're wrapping it around. So for instance, in a magazine, if you ask somebody, Vogue is basically all ads. It's like 500 pages, 300 of them are probably ads, and Condé Nast does very well on it. And if you asked a consumer, would you rather buy Vogue with the ads or completely with all the ads stripped out and just the editorial? Everybody would say, well, of course, I want it with the ads. I want to see what the latest Calvin Klein trend is, and I want to see what Hugo Boss is for spring. And that's very much part of the experience as you're consuming content. It's the context, and it gives you something to aspire to. Brand advertising at its best is very aspirational and inspiring. And what we're trying to be a part of is, I think, a general movement toward fusing more of that advertising. And you see this when people like Burberry has an amazing Instagram feed, and there's a lot of brands like Coke that do too. And what they're doing is showing you a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff of what's going on at their fashion shows, or at certain events that they're doing around the world, different charity programs. It's really interesting, and people care about those kinds of stories. And I think that as you see different social networks and different ways of consuming content, that you'll also see brands reach their consumers in more creative ways that are really adding value to that user experience and giving them good content.
Michael, you get the final word.
Sorry that it'll be such a negative one. So the future that I see is basically killing that which we know as an ad today and replacing it with something new that thrives on relevancy. So why do ads need to be killed? Well, you just start with the word. Many people don't know that an ad is actually an acronym. The acronym is AD, and that stands for annoying distraction. Okay? It's pretty suiting, right? I know this is the wrong audience to be telling this news to, but it's the truth, okay? Now, when we think about mobile, okay, there's physical limitations that we have right off the bat, but there's also a new set of constraints of real-world lifestyle, okay? I'm going to tell you a concept that makes me throw up, okay? You're walking across the street, okay? It's San Francisco. It's busy, traffic, okay? Your device, it dings, ding, okay? And you're like, oh, I bet this is something important. Hold on. You pull the device out, and look at that. Someone's having a 20% off sale. Jesus Christ, you just got hit by a car, okay? While you're behind your computer, you're safe, okay? There's not people throwing stuff at you, okay? But in the real world, things are a little bit different, okay? Now let's hit on the dimensions of the screen, okay? Another thing that makes me throw up. So ads on websites, okay, you get away with it. You put the crap on the side, okay? And then when your brain is processing the content, if it's relevant, out of the corner of your eye, you'll see it and you'll look towards it, okay? And we're cool, totally cool with that. Here's the problem. This is the size of a big postage stamp, okay? You start trying to fill this up with crap, don't do it. Please, don't do it, okay? So now that's where we are today and a little bit of where we'd naturally be headed, okay? But what I want to impose, and I think what the future allows us, is this whole new concept of relevancy, okay? Here's an interesting concept. Has anyone ever seen an ad that was for something that they were interested in buying or looking that they actually wanted or was interested in? It's happened. It's happened. And that time when it happened, you might have actually clicked on it, okay? Here's something that makes me sick. You go to startups and you say, what's your revenue model? And they say ads. And I ask the founder, I say, have you ever clicked on an ad? Cough. Exactly. Nothing. Okay? How could you do that? How could you base the whole nature of your company on something that you yourself wouldn't do? Right? Now let's switch that around. What happens when it is something that's relevant to you? You click it, right? You want to engage in it. And here's the point. It transforms this concept of an ad, an annoying distraction, into something like news, into something like, oh my God, did you hear about this thing that's happening just down the street, right? And these devices give us that information, okay? With our application, we know two things. We know exactly where you're at, and we know all the things that you like. And we're going to work our ass off on the sake of consumers to make the real world much more relevant than people have been allowed in the digital world online.
Great. Perfect way to wrap up. Thank you, guys.